Good evening and welcome to the show where we're going to talk about promoting traditional learning spaces to ensure sustainable gender equality in Uganda. My name is Frank Walusimbi. There has been a remarkable improvement in fostering gender equality in Uganda. If you followed news reports up to recently and reports by non-governmental organizations working to improve gender equality, you know that at least now there are more girls going to school, there are more women active in different jobs, both in the blue and white collar sectors. The number of girls forced into marriage is reducing, and there are more women in elective positions as we speak, among other achievements. That, however, does not mean that the endeavor to achieve gender equality and to reduce violence against women and girls should stop. There is more to do, because the statistics are still alarming despite the said reduction. Just in the recent COVID-19 lockdowns, Uganda police reported that domestic violence cases that were reported and investigated increased by 29%. That is from 13,693 to 17,600 cases between 2019 and 2020. Much as there are men who were victims of the reported violence, women and children were the most affected. Defilement cases increased by 3.8% from 13,613 to 14,134 cases. Those figures are on a very high end. And the question is, how else can we promote respect and dignity for women and men? Because through that, we believe we will be able to reduce on the gender inequality and violence against women and children. The Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda has enabled this Sunday evening interaction for us to explore the relevancy of traditional learning spaces as one of the ways through which we can attain respect and dignity for women and men. Our cultures have been emphatic on this because when there is respect for each other, there is development in our communities. That is obvious. Learning spaces have different names, as we know, in our dialects. The Baganda call it a choto, in Karamoja it is a keno or a perit, in Acholi they call it wango, in Toro, Akasaka, and so on. You'll be able to tell us what you call it there. We will share our WhatsApp number. Welcome Barbara Babwetera, the Executive Director, Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda.
Thank you very much, Frank, and I'm delighted to be here. Good evening to all our listeners and viewers. And
welcome Mr. Andrew Adrian Muchibi, the Executive Director, Navagarika Development Foundation.
Thank you very much, Frank, and good evening to the viewers of NTV this evening.
All right, and Mrs. Ruth Muguta Tusasire, the Principal Social Development Officer, Ministry of Gender, particularly in charge of the Children's Desk.
Family and Children's.
The Family and Children Desk. All right.
Good evening, viewers, and I'm happy to be here, and I hope we will gain from our discussion.
Sure.
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's have a spirited conversation about teaching spaces. Barbara, you will take this on first because you're holding the flag.
Yeah.
When it comes to this, I know you're very, very passionate. You want to teach Ubuntu, humanness,
yeah.
Ubuntu bulamu. The actual, is it the actual called Kit Matir?
Kit Matir.
Kit Matir.
And then Kura Matira for the Alur.
For the Alur in West Nile.
Yes.
So many names. And as we speak, I was saying earlier before we came on air that it's universal, Ubuntu. If you go to South Africa and you talk about Ubuntu Bulamu and Ubuntu, you're on the same page. They will understand what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Why now, Barbara?
Thank you very much, Frank. I must say, first of all, that the Cross-Cultural Foundation of Uganda, as an NGO, we've been in operation for 15 years now plus, and our aim is actually on promoting the appreciation of positive aspects of culture that can contribute to the development aspects of our country. Oftentimes, culture is dismissed as being archaic, as being backward, but I must say that there is no country that has had development without basing on its culture. And it seems for us here in Uganda, we are looking at culture as something that is backward, that cannot contribute anything, and we feel much more aligned to the Western culture other than our own. Yet there is really a lot that lies in there that if we harness it, we can be able to contextualize and attain development that is context specific, that resonates with who we are as a people, and at the same time promotes our values that we believe in as Ugandans. There is a lot, when we talk about gender-based violence or violence against women, when you ask any person along the street, what is the biggest cause of violence against women? They will tell you culture is the first culprit. But we have not really gotten down to understand and appreciate what culture is. Sometimes we mistake it for instances that we have seen happening in, let's say, 3-4 households, and we get to assume that, oh, that is the culture. Yet culture really has a lot that it does provide. When you try to analyze our Ugandan culture, you will never find a culture that condones raping of women or girls.
It is abominable.
It's abominable. But when you say that rape is instigated by our cultures, then I think we are not really understanding the concept of culture. The reason as to why we are looking at the learning spaces now, this is something that is slowly and gradually dying away, yet it is the foundation that builds the moral fiber of a society. The moment we neglect what is oftentimes termed as informal learning spaces, then we are not nurturing our people. It is right at the family level where our young ones are told and taught aspects of respect for humanity. You've rightly talked about Ubuntu Bulamu. When you are teaching Ubuntu Bulamu, there is no way violence against another person will come to the same table when you are talking about Ubuntu Bulamu. Humanness, the respect of who people are, the duty for care for one another. So you cannot say that I care about you when every night I'm slapping you, when I'm denying you food, when I'm denying you your right of identity and existence. So it is imperative that before we lose it all, can we reflect? Can we draw back to some of these informal learning spaces? The choto, there was learning by the fireside as the mothers were cooking. How much are we actually indulging our children into learning while we are doing all this kind of work at home? We also have spaces that used to be put there by the cultural institutions. In some places it is still happening. A good example is the Navagarika Development Foundation, the Echsakati that is initiated by the Queen Mother to foster learning for the young people is one of such good examples. But how many do we still have now? Among the Basoga there was a concept of Echigangu. That is an equivalent of a learning space where even the Abambeda, that's how they call them in Lusoga, would sit and actually transmit information, values, customs, practices to their people. When you go to Bunyoro and Toro, we had what is called Ekikali Kianyino Mukama. These were roles and responsibilities that people were using, and in some spaces still do, to make sure that we don't actually lose the moral fiber. And the reason why we are looking at it now is the escalating forms of violence today. When you try to analyze, to get to the root cause of it all, it is actually more of moral decadence, the loss of our values that is triggering a lot of this. When you teach Ubuntu Bulamu as a value, I'm not seeing where a man will stand up to chase his wife out of the home empty-handed, or even to kick her and beat her when he actually entrenches and believes in Ubuntu.
Well put. Thank you, Barbara. I'll come to you, Mr. Mchibi. I know you're passionate about this in the Navagarika Development Foundation, Echsakate, I think, how many years now?
17.
17 years, yeah. From 2007. No, 7?
Yeah.
Yeah, then it's about 14 years.
No, that's around 16, 17.
14, 15 years. Okay. But we're talking about talking spaces in times where young people think that some of these beautiful cultural practices are insignificant. Do you think we can attain something from a discussion like this?
Yeah, I definitely believe that a lot can be achieved, and like it has already been stated before on this particular program, for us to get back to these learning spaces for the young ones, which eventually graduates into Echsakate, is that we have to appreciate the role that culture plays in inculcating or nurturing individuals. The moment we start appreciating the role of culture, then we shall start appreciating the role of these specific spaces. And for us as an institution, we believe that when you look at the way we are structured by God, every human being starts from a family. And the first learning space for any individual in this world is the family. What we see at the Echsakate or in the Choto is a graduation from the learning space that you had initially at home to learning space that you're having, where you're bringing people that are coming from different families and coming into one space so that you learn. But initially, the first learning space is the home. And it depends on we as parents, how we relate with our children and how we make them appreciate or not appreciate our culture. The moment I as a parent start castigating and blaming and talking bad about my culture, it's more likely that my children will not appreciate the culture. And even if there is space that requires them to come and get knowledge, they won't come there because they assume that knowledge is attained elsewhere. That if you want to get knowledge, you go to school. That's why you'll find that parents start demanding for things from schools which are supposed to be their responsibility. And God forbid, but COVID lockdown opened our eyes to the failure of the family unit as a learning space.
Very much.
All the problems that we are castigating against COVID, that these are problems that we are as a result of a problem, are actually a manifestation of the absence of our playing our roles as parents. And the Uganda have a proverb that says that yes, exactly. That it's only after it has rained, that's when you realize that actually you didn't thatch your heart well. And so COVID just opened that for us.
Did that.
So certainly I believe it's the role of the parents to make the children appreciate culture and also appreciate what and even define culture for them. Because many things that people call culture are actually three people, like she stated, three people are behaving in a certain way, and then people start assuming that's culture. But when you go deep into the culture, that's never our culture. And I always ask people, where in our culture is it written that, for example, a woman is supposed to take water to the bathroom for the man?
Yeah.
Where is it? It's nowhere. But because we are selfish, we want it to be done in that way, we start promoting it as culture.
And it should be warm water.
Exactly.
I hear.
Exactly.
And you scrub the feet.
Yeah.
Okay, but modernity, I don't know whether you agree with me that it is throwing away many of our beautiful cultures. And
it is not
the home, the family as we know it, it's like Adrian is saying, it's not functional. So, but we need this knowledge. We need this knowledge to be transmitted to the next generation. And I think schools and innovations like Echsakate are very, very relevant when it comes to this. Because if you go to urban places now, the urbanized places, the likes of Kampala, Wachiso and what have you, parents are very busy. The children are also busy at school. They are being pumped with academic material. The parents are busy looking for money. So by all means, we're going to come back to schools, we're going to come back to Echisakati, and where we can, I think this discussion has to go on aggressively, and we make sure that teaching places happen again. Mrs. Muguta.
Thank you very much. I was laughing as you were talking about this. You know, I'm a very cultured woman, but as well as I don't take culture that oppresses. One is that I don't believe that someone can teach my child a behavior. They can add on, but they cannot teach. When you go scientific, what you are, sir, is the 2 years, there are 1,000 days that were made before you were born. In that, if you want your child to be, utilize the years, the first 3 years with the child. That is not a Ministry of Education, that is not Navagarika Foundation, it is you, the parent.
It starts with the parent.
With you. And I really support what he has said. These are additionals, because sometimes where traditionally a parent would feel, I cannot add on this, talk about it, then the other spaces talk about them. But when you've given the basics, I really sympathize sometimes with schools, because we want to throw everything to the schools, but they are the same people who have grown up in the same way we have grown up, who are fearing and who can't talk anything. We are busy, they are also busy. But you are busy for who? Whom are you working for? So the basis of everything on how we are going to use our traditional spaces, one of the spaces that is very important is the home. The family where the mother and the father, if God wishes all of you are there, even if you are not there, where whoever is there becomes a mirror for which the children see through. In one of the tribes I come from, when they see how we behave, they say, Avam makachi. Why don't they say Avam musomerochi? The first thing is Avam makachi. Oba yazaliwa maka gatayina madirisa. So those are some of the things that indicate that your family never inculcated values in you. And what are the values, or what are those spaces that are the values that are given in certain spaces like those ones? To be respectful, as what she said. To have a value, so that if I'm seen, they say that omwana oyo mwana munyankole. Why do they say so? Because of the way either I'm walking, either I've spoken, the language I've used, but now today, Mr. Rosimbi, you don't want your children to speak your language. And so when our children get in certain adolescent age, where we want Navagarika Foundation, the Choto, the Wango, to meet them, they have already seen that the culture is no longer valuable to them. And you take them to ask for them to ask them questions, and they say, what are we promoting? A child comes in, is a boy with the plaited hair, 15 years, 14 years. What do you expect Navagarika Foundation to do? And you in the family,
the parents
you are happy,
have let them know
with
that it is normal.
You are not explaining to this child, whether a girl or a boy, you need to respect each other. But they hear it from TV, from either Nigerian plays or Indian plays, and they see how they behave, and the child picks it, and no one is neutralizing whatever information this person is getting. And by the way, it's not the urbanites. We've gone even down to the rural areas. Parents are not there. I remember it is NTV brought here a man from Mukono, who whenever the child would be about 6 years, they would go to look for themselves. Banabam 7. Who doesn't know the children of 7? So that's where we have reached. And we need to, we as planners, as politicians, as implementers, to come back and ask ourselves, what type of an engineer who was not looked after, that will be also consider it and say, I'm building this bridge, tomorrow it may affect my grandmother, and what? He has no love. So when we don't give these values to our children, we don't expect them back to us. And that's why Ministry of Gender set some rules. There is a law on culture and traditional institutions, the 2011, and gives one of the responsibility to mobilize communities to appreciate the government programs. But as a culture institution, Mr. Muchibi, he's not in your family. He's going to mobilize someone already who is finished. We were in Hoima, and we met these ones who are being compensated. Someone was left in the home to keep it because all their parents went away, and so they were going to take away part of the land, and it was taking the graves of their parents. He kept quiet. They are 11. He kept quiet to other siblings. They gave him money. He would make a line for people to drink on his ticket. And whenever they would come and say, but we heard they have given you money, he would what? Say, if you want me to kill you, talk about that money. So what type of a parent is that one if the child is growing up with that parent? So that is the situation of the people we are growing in. And that one, if he changes against the daughter, if he changes against the wife, would anyone ask, is it culture? It is not. Others, the culture changes with situations, but it doesn't change to say beat someone, kill someone. Because most of the values that we are taught during those days, traditional ones, which they say are backward, they would even not allow you to sit on the motor. And they would give an excuse which actually you would fear. If you sit on the motor, you are going to kill your father. If you cut nails at night, your mother will die. So that you fear, but it was just creating fear so that you are able to be in line. But today you have to explain, if you cut yourself, you will cut yourself because at night you can't see properly, which we don't have time. And so we need together to come up and strengthen this family, this parent. If you are not able, Mr. Warsimbi, to sit with the children, don't produce them.
Now that they were produced, they're existing.
And so take a responsibility.
And the parents are not taking responsibility.
We have to bring them back and they take the responsibility. We have now the national parenting guidelines. In some, either 2 months or 3 months, we'll have the national family policy. And I think if we can be supported as government and we work together with civil society and courage institutions, we strengthen this family, people will come back to understand.
Parenting.
You cannot be a parent and you sleep with your child. Then you are not a parent. And out of the statistics during COVID, 200 out of those, the children that were defiled by their fathers.
Cases of incest.
But is it accepted in culture?
In tradition.
No culture accepts that.
Exactly.
So should we use culture as that it supports gender inequality? No, it is the excuse that people use before they don't understand what culture means. It means respect, honesty, humanity, when really you know that that person is cultured. That's why sometimes they say in Uganda everyone is loved, because maybe they stress their culture more than anyone.
I'm throwing these at all of us. How can we revive traditional learning spaces? Echoto, I don't know where Mr. Muchibi comes from. My home district is Gomba, but I can attest to you that I haven't seen a Choto in more than 30 years. I haven't seen one. And the question is, how do we revive this?
I will speak to that first. We understand that culture is dynamic. It's not static. It changes with circumstances. But the most important thing is us appreciating the objectives of some of our practices, principles, norms, and values, and then we find ways of re-engineering. We change the way that we do things, but maintain the ultimate objective as to why we are doing what we are doing. For example, if we can no longer put out the fireplace outside where the different families will come together to talk to the young ones, we still have a dining table inside the house.
Yeah.
Can we as a family make time at least once a day for just 1 hour, sit at the round table with our children, irrespective of us being in enclosed settings? Can we sit with our children at dinner time and talk to them? Can we find a weekend, probably, we visit Senga or Auntie so-and-so, and while we visit, let's not just relegate the children to go and be playing football, but rather find just 30 minutes. We don't need a lot. Can we find that little time to sit with these young people and talk to them? What is dying out is the value of care for one another, which is one of the greatest principles of Ubuntu or humanness. There is that duty of care, and you take it as a responsibility upon yourself. If I do not care about the children of my brother, then who is going to do that, to help out with the girls? So there are very many ways we can re-engineer this. Instead of probably having the night sessions, can we find it during daytime? Because there are very many risks that arise. If you're bringing together young girls of adolescent age and you want to talk to them at night, you are exposing them to more risk. So can we rather have this done maybe during holiday times? Can we arrange, as people with responsibility, let me say if you're a clan leader, how often do you invite the young people within your clan to have sessions with them? It's good that there are some cultures, there are some clans that actually still treasure this, and once every year they have those meetings where they hold each other accountable. It becomes a time for dispute resolution of things that have been happening within the family, to lessen on the grudges that have been existing. If you are a man and you are well known, your wife complains a lot about the battering and violence that happens, it's during such meetings that you will be actually put to account. They will sit you down and say, hey, we have had A, B, C, D. We would need to talk about this and resolve it. So we need to re-engineer the way we transmit our information. One of the things that the Cross Cultural Foundation is doing, when you talk about culture, the excuse is often that, where is it written? It's nowhere. So the step that we have taken is to document some of these exemplar practices that are really good, that can help us to learn. We disseminate them as widely as possible so that people, those who have missed out on the opportunity to learn from their own parents, can read, understand, and take it up upon themselves as responsible persons to now turn to their young ones and nurture them and impart those skills using this, the written or documented methodology. What does this mean? How do they do it? Who does it? With who? At what particular time? What is the nature of the content that is involved? Use now that and disseminate to your own children. Re-engineer, re-engineer, re-engineer.
Okay, Mr. Mchibi, would you want to add on that?
Yeah, I think for me, the key step in trying to revive the traditional learning spaces is creating interest. Ugandans and all parents will always find time for something that they think is important. That's the reason we have time to go and watch the Premiership. That's why we have time to go to the bar. That's why you have time to go and do different things. So the starting point is appreciating the need, that this is something that is important. Then the second issue is appreciating that a learning space is not a building, is not a fireplace, but anytime you have to interact with your children or somebody else should be a space for learning. It should be that you're driving your child to school, and you're driving from Mukono to Kampala, and along that way, that the amount of time that you spend in the car should be that you could be your choto.
The conversation can be a choto.
It could be at the dining table. It could be as you're walking to church. It could be as you're walking to the garden. It could be as you're coming back from the garden. So for us is to look at a learning space as any opportunity that you are accorded to impart some knowledge on your children and using the experience that you see along the way. For me, I think it's possible. All we need is, first of all, to show that it's important that we do it. Then the second thing is to show that it hasn't got to be structured, that any time, any opportunity that you create to provide the learning, that could be the new Choto in this generation.
Because times have indeed changed.
Exactly.
When we return, we shall hint at the issue of social media, whether we can also make use of that space. And know all the young people that you can think of in this country and world over are on that space. How else can we make use of it? Thank you for watching. We're back. You are watching a conversation about promoting traditional learning spaces to ensure sustainable gender equality. My name is Frank Walusimbi, and my guests are here having a good time. They are telling us what we should actually be doing. So many people indeed are saying they do not have time to talk to the children, and they are disagreeing with you. You can create the time. Ruth was very aggressive. She's saying if you don't have time to talk to the children, don't bring them on earth.
Yeah.
Just okay. Thank you. But you talked about parenting guidelines, Ruth.
Yeah.
Who knows about these guidelines? I haven't seen a write-up about the guidelines you're talking about.
Thank you very much.
Or is it that you don't publicize a lot, and that is why many of us do not know?
Yeah, but we have publicized it. It is 2018, the National Parenting Guidelines. We have tried by help of others and government to disseminate to culture institutions, religious institutions, districts, and we've tried a bit to get to the media, but not a lot, and we want you to be our allies. Then the guidelines brings out some specific skills. You need to love your child, to have time, you need to teach. As a man or as an elder in the home, you are the priest, you need to give them what religion means and culture, because unless we do this, teach them hard working, because most of our children, we give them money, they don't know that you work for it. And so ensure that if you have some children they have challenges, disabilities, you give them more attention, but again, don't make them more to think that they are more disadvantaged. Ensure that you build their capacity to be self-dependent, because that's where the child starts from. As I told you, there are 1,000 days is when we stimulate the children's growth. Most here we say our children, Black Africans, that's why sometimes we get a challenge with our president when he talks of sciences. The sciences starts at that time, when the mother is pregnant, the first breastfeeding. How have you stimulated the cognitive development of the child? Because when you bring out the child in dull environment, then they are dull. But if you bring out the children in that active environment, in the loving environment, and Mr. Walusimbi, I want you to go home and check if you have a young child, and that when you come and the child cries, then you are a stranger to your child. You should be known to your child even when the child is still in the womb of the mother, in that they listen, they hear, they feel. So if you are not part of the growth of the pregnancy 9 months, and you are just saying, Genda Mwantinento, without you being part of it, you will always be a stranger to your child. So we need to ensure that we've got, as what you've said, the social media, we've got the new technologies, and what you learn from there, you get to know what is being done. Even how you want those children to be, you can prophesy without kakande, without anyone. You prophesy to your child what you want, and that child will be like that. But when you tell people, they say, Ruth is talking about the Western. No, our parents prophesied to us.
You don't need to go to a prophet.
You don't need. You are the priest in your home, so you do whatever you want. So I wanted to, as you talked on the social media, the parenting is online. You can get it from Ministry of Gender website, and you can go through it, but I will make sure that I will bring you one.
How many languages have you used?
That is the problem. We still have it in English, but I know Cross Culture Foundation will help us once and put it in the languages where they go.
Government should be helping Cross Culture Foundation instead.
We work together. They come in to fill in the gaps because we cannot do everything. So long as we bring a guide, then they also use the guide to also do other things.
Before I let you rest for a moment, there is the element of patriotism of late in schools. Has that been of any use to the children?
It can be to a certain time. To that one who has had it at home. By the way,
it starts home.
In Unyankole we have a saying, I don't know whether you'll find out, that that you bend the tree when it is still young, the way you want it to be. In Uganda we say you
can't straighten it in
so because when you wait for this person already who is already knowing he's selfish, he eats alone, and that is patriotism. Patriotism is not about NRM, is not about UP, is it what? NUP, is not about DP what? It is about loving your country, respect, sharing, fearing, being committed. In that, you find someone jumps something and he knows that another person may get a problem but doesn't mind. Someone builds a school knowing it will not take 2 days, it may fall on the children, doesn't mind. That's not patriotism. And that one you get it from childhood. But now today, if you find my child on the road and he said they were doing like this, you even don't want someone else to talk about something about your child. But the child is for the community. And it is from that the child will respect. If I meet Mr. Warusimbi and tells me something like this, I take it seriously.
That norm has long changed, that the child is for the community.
Now we can use the technology that is here at this time and ensure that we pass on this culture, these values, these norms, these practices that are not oppressive. Because you may find there are those which are oppressive. We can't deny everything. But those that are not oppressive, if Mr. Mukiba agrees, we went through some of the culture institutions and they denounced some of them. In that, we know that in everything, whether in Western or in our traditions, there are those that are oppressive. So those ones, we don't promote them as culture.
Mr. Mukiba, you can pick it up from the oppressive norms that she's talking about. That there is wide belief that many of these cultures are instilling patriarchy. It is the man, you know, and as they do that, the conversation about gender equality, you know, seems to be an achievement that is far away from us.
Yeah, I do agree that some aspects of culture could be negative. However, whenever we're having a challenge in regards to appreciating our culture, I like to let people know that the basis of most of our culture is Ubuntu. That if we appreciate Ubuntu, like a value like empathy, which we call Okfakumuno, there is no way you are going to be violent against someone, then you claim Okuwanga or you're empathetic to them. There's no way. If you're empathetic to someone, you will appreciate the situation in which someone lives and also try to be good to them. And that's the reason when you hear young children playing and they fight, a child will come and say, Onakubye munno. That is a very powerful statement. That despite the fact that there is conflict, they still refer to this person as munno. That's a very strong thing. It shows how deep-rooted Ubuntu is in our culture. So, amidst all the challenges that we have, we should promote the positive cultural values and still understand what our culture is. Because many times we are working with misconceptions. We think that culture tells us this when it's not. I'll give an example of the position of a woman in my culture, the Uganda culture. A widow is called Namwandu. Namwandu means the treasurer. So it implies that even in that situation, it shows you the prominence of the woman in the family, irrespective of the fact that probably the resources are brought to the family by the man. but still the woman is the treasure of that space.
She's in charge.
Exactly. When you look at the way we are structured, when someone has died and they're putting a hair, we have a hair and a coheres, lubuga. That tries to portray the role of a woman in her position. Even if it's for the king, there is nothing a lubuga. Even if it's for for us, if you look at the position of a woman, all we need to do is actually to show those that claim that actually this was the actual role of a woman in our culture. And this is what their responsibilities are. And that will help us to start appreciating things differently and demystify those claims that actually are violent against women. So for me, my conviction is revival of Ubuntu Bulamu. People should take responsibility, which is the value of Ubuntu Bulamu, should be empathetic, should be accountable, all those things. So for me, the moment we anchor our lives on the values of Ubuntu Bulamu, then even the news that NTV airs will change. Because there are certain things that we see which are a manifestation of the absence of the values of Ubuntu Bulamu. The moment we become Ubuntu Bulamu, then that segment of the news will go away. Because now people will not be looking at that as a news item. Yeah.
And even appreciating each other. Because the main thing where there is gender inequality is not appreciating. But there is no one who can't be there without another. You know, I find it either Semwando or Namwando, where he has remained alone, there is a gap. And so it means if someone is not there, there will be a gap. So if we appreciate each other, so we know the contribution, we know need each other, and so you will not harm your friend.
Empathy. I see news stories that we do here sometimes, the ones that Mr. Muchibi is talking about. There is an accident somewhere, and the first thing
is to look for
something. First people to arrive will think about is to loot.
Yeah.
If it's a truck of cement, I don't know, they will pick up anything and take it, and you wonder where we are.
And nowadays to also hold the phone and they do the coverage,
you
to be the first person to break the news about an accident without minding first about the lives of
you go on social media and condemn that behavior. You see people saying, Katibandi kozechi, what were they supposed to do? Leave the cement, leave the money there. You know, that's where we are. But initially I was talking about social media. How can we tap into this space? It's very huge.
I must say that social media is one of the best platforms that we could also utilize to do the learning. The most important thing is what are we putting out there? How are we tailoring this information to benefit the young people to learn? How are we monitoring our young people's usage of their phones to get onto social media? There is a lot of TikTok, which would be a good opportunity to help young people to learn. Sorry to say, recently I read, I was watching a little bit on TikTok, and I saw Honorable Chagulani with his children, and they were saying this is the first time he has gone on TikTok. But the nature of message that was there, he was with his children and asking them to recite their family lineage. So such kind of message or information is really good to help to do the learning. So we as adults, how responsible are we in terms of developing content that we are putting out there for the young people to consume? You'll find some people putting information about them. I saw recently one where a woman was giving birth and she captured it live herself and even posted it out there and shares without any empathy. She feels it's her right to put it out there. After all, it's me. But then what message are we putting out to the young ones? So I think the learning, the most important thing is also, again, getting back to our family level. When we teach our young ones what even to look out for, And at a later stage, when they have started appreciating and understanding, we give them these gadgets and see how they are using them, monitor them. But then a child that has been brought up, you know, there is a difference between growing up and being brought up.
Yeah.
So for a child that has actually been brought up, will even be scared to watch certain kind of
Content.
You can even tell while you're in your living room watching television together, and maybe an intimacy scene comes on. You will see the young kid immediately rushing to change the channel immediately, to first wait for that to go off, and then she gets back. So it's all an indicator of how we are nurturing these children right from the start. But I think social media is a great opportunity. As we've said, culture is a living heritage. We embrace whatever is coming, but how do we embrace it for the benefit of our own people is what is key and critical. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the parenting guidelines that Ruth has just alluded to. When you look at the parenting guidelines, it doesn't bring out anything that is new, that families that have Ubuntu bulamu do not know and are not practicing.
There are things we already know.
And for one to learn parenting, it's not that these guidelines are the ones that teach us how to parent.
They are
People
reminders.
have been parenting since time memorial. But the first school of learning is the family, is the household. The way you, the father, is relating to your wife, who is the mother of these children, is already school enough for the young ones to learn and know when they become parents in the future, how are they going to teach and nurture their children. So as much as these parenting guidelines are important, the first school should be within our homes. Let's get back to the drawing board. We nurture using the principles of humanness, which are all our cultural values. It's not just yesterday that the principle of humanness started, Ubuntu.
No.
Our great-grandparents had this. The most important is, are we valuing them? Are we interested in seeing these very same values continue? And I appreciate the government has also realized that if we do not get back to the drawing board, the citizens we are producing for the future are going to ruin the nation. And within the education curriculum, there is a change now. And I appreciate and I want to applaud the Ministry of Education for that. This new competence-based curriculum is actually focusing on one of the most important issues, which is values. And what they will be assessing the young ones on, they are looking at generating skills, communication, interaction, relating, but also values. Justice is very key within that. The way you are relating, how responsible you are, is part of the examinable areas now when they are doing their continuous assessment. And I think this is the right direction. But we need to also draw it back a little bit to the primary level, maybe from P5 to P7 in the curriculum, but then in our homes, it should already have started.
All right.
Maybe additional to that,
in about
this in a few minutes, this year's theme on International Day of the Family and globally and Uganda is new technologies and families. So one of the things is that there are things that we'll have and we can't stop to come. But as they come, what are the opportunities that are there that can strengthen our family? This year, some of these years you find there are family chat on WhatsApp, where family members, whether abroad or what, they have a family chat. Those are some of the good things that the Spaces is talking about that we can use and optimize to ensure that we give in information.
Instead of belonging to WhatsApp groups that share explicit information or content, create one of family where you talk about your lineage, your culture, your development issues, and that kind of positive thing.
Actually, I can make you laugh. Yesterday, I was asking one of my nieces that, do you know about 3 of your grand? He said, I stop at 2, my father and my grand.
And that is everywhere. Most children cannot name 3 of their grandfathers backward. I think we have a duty there to teach them. Sensitization should be done to allow parents to understand the new system. That's Moses. I believe children are a blessing from God, so parents have more a big role to nurture the kids in the way they want them to be in future. Honest, Ayebare, thank you. All right, the WhatsApp number of Bishop, but unfortunately the time is running out. Mr. Muchibi, social media.
I think for me,
in
like
a few seconds,
like everybody has stated, social media is a very important opportunity that we have. It's something that we've used during COVID under the Echigangu Navagarika. We've done a lot of training and support to parents using social media. As an organization, we have an approach for parenting, which is we call the OSA approach. This is observation, speech, and action. That what you observe your children do and what they observe you do is what they learn. So you must be mindful of your action. You must be mindful of your speech. So I believe that every space that exists is a learning space for people. And so we as parents must be conscious whenever we are interacting with our children, whenever we're in spaces where the young children, because we are either teaching them good things or teaching them the bad things. When you pick your phone and you're responding to a call and you tell someone that, Andy, I'm on my way, I'm about to reach, when you're seated in your sitting room,
you're at home sitting.
That's what you're nurturing. So the onus is on us as parents and how we use those spaces. It's a good opportunity, but also when you start tapping into a technology, you must know how it works. That yes, I bought a DSTV in my home. Do I know how to do parent control so that children are limited to the programs that they're supposed to do? The same applies if you buy a phone and give it to your child so that they can have access to WhatsApp. Have you given them training on what is useful content and how they should use it? Or they behave like the first of us who go to the phone the first time and then you start teaching yourself. There are opportunities that we can use to nurture our children so that they use social media responsibly, and by that way we grow and nurture ourselves as a nation.
Many parents certainly are training liars. Somebody picks up their phone, like you're saying, I am on the way, I am in Natete, yet they're actually in Nasan or somewhere else. But sometimes it can come back to you. I know of a kid who picked up a phone and said, Tata Agambye taliwo, when the father is seated right there. All right, in the participatory we're using a Choto seasons to bring up children, even the family at large, to keep healthy and safe without violence. Thank you, CCFU. All right. I dropped
watching from Saudi Arabia.
Okay, on Saudi Arabia, thank you. I have liked the theme. It is really good, but these days parents resorted to work, which is good, but this led to child neglect. Children, we no longer get enough time. Children don't get enough time from their parents. Okay, we'll leave WhatsApp at that. We can't take any more. Time is against us. Barbara, do you want to wind this up? Learning spaces, traditional learning spaces.
Thank you very much.
And are you planning to work with Mr. Muchibi there, Chisakate, Navagarika, and other kingdoms, by the way? I know Bunyoro, they have something like that, Busoga, and they have this. Even Minister of Gender, I think you might want to partner with these people. Barbara.
We are actually implementing a program that is called Culture for Her, and we are doing this in partnership with Ministry of Gender, supported by UN Women under the Spotlight Initiative. We would really want to appreciate you for that support, and the Embassy of Sweden. I must say that yes, we are collaborating a lot with all these cultural institutions. This program, we have done it a little bit intensely in Buddu for Buganda Kingdom, and if you go there, I think there is really a lot that one can get as examples for learning. We've also worked with Alur Kingdom. We are working with Kerkwaro Acholi. We are working with Toro, especially working with Kogere Foundation, and there is a lot going on there. we also work with Busoga Kingdom. So I must say that as parents, let's take up our responsibility. Let's nurture our children, starting from within our families, and utilize every opportunity that we have to teach our young people. The learning spaces are many. It only takes our interest, and it takes us to pick up that obligation and teach our young people. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara Babutera from Cross Culture Foundation of Uganda. Ms. Adrian Muchibi from the Navagarika Foundation, Mrs. Ruth Muguta from the Ministry of Gender. Thank you for creating time for this show, and especially you, CCFU, for making sure that the show happens.
Welcome.
All right, thank you for watching. Please create time for your children. That is the first learning space we have to deal with and make sure that it works. Before you send the children to school and start blaming the teachers for not doing enough, start at home. Do it yourself.